What do you get when you cross the hate you give with to all the boys I've loved before? In my humble opinion, you get this book. It's called Hearts Unbroken by Cynthia Leitich Smith. This book is so good. I literally was raving on Goodreads about. I just feel like this book is like my favorite, one of my favorite YA novels, probably of all time. Probably of all time. Now, I'm not going to say, because I think, of course, the peak of reading YA is when you are in the age genre, right? When you're in the age of teenage to middle school, that's when you read the most YA for a lot of people, for me at least. So I'm not gonna say that it topped the things I read during that time period. I'm not gonna say that this tops because to me, when I was younger, the series that really hit me emotionally for the first time in YA was Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Okay, so that was the first time that I really connected with books like that on that level. But I feel like this is kind of in the same league for me, at least, of relatability, of just being well written, of just being interesting, of having interesting characters and an interesting plot and complicated young female characters. That's my opinion on this book. A lot of people on Goodreads said they didn't like it. They said the chapters were choppy, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I can't relate. I loved it. I loved every word. It's not better, but I feel like it's in the same league as that. And I also feel like it's in the same league as The Hate You Give and To All the Boys I Loved Before, and it doesn't have nearly even half the hype. See, I checked it out from the library. Anyway, it doesn't have even half the hype. We need to hype this. I think it's so good. So when I compare it to those two other novels, hold on, let me get my little notes. My cute little, I love this journal. I'm a sucker for stationery and journals. Like, I have so many journals, it's ridiculous. So I compared it to that because it has the political observations and the interesting kind of like socio-political through line in the plot, but also the like budding romance and like young love chemistry that To All the Boys I Loved Before has in it. I think it's like in the middle of those two. It's because it's, I don't think it's, maybe it's not as political as The Hate You Give, but I don't know. I think it is pretty political. I think it's pretty political. And it's from, let me just describe what it's about. It's from the perspective, this girl on the cover, she's obviously a brown girl. You see the feathers. I guess that's a hint. We're going to talk about the cover in a second. I don't like the cover, but it's a hint at her. She's Native American. She's Native American and she's from the, I forget what she's from, what nation she's from, but she's from a Native American, you know, a section of being Native American. I'm sorry. Sorry, Native American folks. Anyway, so she is making so many keen observations in this novel about how we discuss people of color in general and Native American people specifically. And not even how we discuss them, but how they're portrayed throughout our pop culture. She references all of the like important conversations people are having about cultural appropriation, about the Redskins and the Braves having Indian mascots or Native American mascots. She talks about Indian versus Native American and which term is correct to use. And what I love that she does is she highlights a cast of characters in this novel that is very diverse outside of just the main character. And I think that sometimes, like, certain people have gotten in trouble for that. For instance, this is several years ago, but Mindy Kaling got in trouble for that years ago for having, like, she made this show where her main character was herself and she was like a token amongst a whole cast of like non people of color. But this is not like that. So she's Native American. Another girl, Karishma, that works on the school newspaper with her is real Indian. Um, real Indian versus, you know, Native Americans are different from Indians. Anyway, And then her love interest, one of them is white, and her other love interest is Lebanese. I think, yeah, Lebanese. And I think let me. I'm writing the see. What do I have this for? What do I have the notes for? I'm gonna get it wrong anyway. Anyway, I just made like overall notes in here. What's my next note? Hold on. Let me get it out. Hold on, class. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, the next thing I loved about this is that it was like very quirky. It was not. I compared it to The Hate You Give and To All the Boys I Loved Before, but it also has its own unique like humor to it. It has its own like lighthearted moments that carry you through the heavier stuff involving the cultural appropriation, the racism, all the things that the character is going through. She breaks it up with some comedic relief, and she also breaks it up with the romance, and why I compared it To All the Boys I Loved Before. It's not insta love. It's not insta love. It's not instantaneously falling in love. Like, oh my gosh, I just met him and he said one clever thing. I'm head over heels. That's it. You know, like it's not like that. And I'm like, I try not to criticize young adult novels for that too much, because I'm like, maybe I'm just not the target audience. Let me give another example. For the story, 13 Reasons Why, I hated that story. I was like, this, you can tell this was written by a man. No young girls thinking like this. La la la, etc., etc. Tons of young girls are Selena Gomez, and tons of young girls are reading the book and watching the show, and they see something in it that I didn't see. So I try not to rely too heavily on criticizing tropes, because I feel like things become tropes probably because the audience that they're writing for gravitates towards those tropes. So I try to keep that in mind when I criticize novels. But this novel, it just throws that out. It just throws out the whole trope conversation. She's like, you don't need a trope. In fact, not only are you not going to go after Mr. Popular Boy, you're going to dump him. Oh, spoiler. Well, it happens in the beginning of the book. So she's Native American. She breaks up with her boyfriend at the beginning of the novel. It's not a spoiler, because he says really untoward racist stuff about Native Americans. And she's just like, I'm Native American. Can you not? And he's like, oh, you're censoring me. You know how people get very defensive when you say, like, hi, hey, you're saying something that is not right. It's racist. Can you stop? People get very defensive. They're like, oh, he's like, oh, you're trying to censor me. You're going off about every little thing that I say. Oh, this would be cute to put it back here. Okay, goofy. Anyway, please don't lie. I don't have a bookshelf. Don't criticize my stack. I want to talk about this one next. This one right here is The Great School. That was a novel. That was something to talk about. Like all over the place. What was I just talking about? Oh, so she breaks up her boyfriend and he was really defensive. So she's like, I'm going to change. I'm not going to do cheerleading anymore. I'm going to now become part of the journalism squad. So the journalism squad, cheer squad to journalism squad, but the journalism, what do they call it? The journalism, a little group of reporters. There's a name for it. Anyway, the newsroom. I don't know. So she joins journalism and she meets a guy, and this is her love interest, her real love interest. I'm trying to cover my chair. I don't like this upholstery of this chair. It was like not a gift, but kind of like a hand-me-down chair. Anyway, I love this scarf. I don't ever wear it. It's gigantic. Anyway, so he is intelligent. He's also a person of color because he's Lebanese. They both have experienced microaggressions. They both have personal things that they relate on a lot. And it's revealed over the course of the novel. She doesn't see him and immediately go, I'm ready to fall in love with him right now, today. You know, and I thought that that portrayal was so positive, and I loved it so much. I just thought it was so good. I loved their relationship. I I'm here for it. I was here for it. How much can I get into the plot without spoiling it? I'm not gonna get too much into it. Oh, but the next thing, I'm not gonna get too much into the plot, but I want to say one important thing also that I loved about this novel. The characters were not perfect people. The characters did not make perfect decisions. Everything didn't wrap up perfectly in the end. There's a little bit, I was a little bit disappointed at certain things, but I had to let it go. Especially with her brother. Her brother, Huey, he tries out for the school play. He's, of course, they're both Native American. They have the same parents, so he's Native American. And the main plot, which I think that they don't reference a lot in the summary of the book on the flap of the cover, is they don't talk about how a lot about the play. So the school play is Wizard of Oz, and the theater teacher was like, I'm going to make it like a blind casting or a color conscious casting. I forget which one they said. And I'm going to let whoever has the best audition be in the play. I'm not going to cast based off of what we perceive or what we're used to the character looking like. For example, a black girl plays Dorothy. The Tin Man is the Native American brother, Huey. And another character was Mexican American. I forget what he was. I feel it was he the lion? I don't know if he was the lion. I don't remember what else there was. But that's basically the main plot, with people in the town, especially the parents, forming a very ridiculous group called Parents Against Revisionist Theater. Now, I think this group was obviously just a metaphor, but it touched on a lot of things. It touched on censorship, it touched on racism, it touched on hate crimes, it touched on people being hypocritical, it touched on, you know, everyone in the book was, and I said this already, they were not perfect characters. So even though we are rooting for Louise, who is the main character, even though we're rooting for her, she's not perfect either. She makes mistakes. Her love interest is imperfect. They're having a conversation, and he basically says, "Oh, cheerleading isn't a real sport. Cheerleaders just cheer real athletes." And I'm like, really? And then he also equates slut shaming to being salacious, and it's just that's just a bunch of she said, she said. You wrote about that just to get clicks onto the website. And you know, she has to like rebuttal this as a young, intelligent girl and be like, excuse me, no, no, no. You know, like you know, and it's that it's important, because even the nice guys don't always have the nicest or most enlightened opinion about every single subject, especially when you're young. So I thought, like, that's so great. I like that he was flawed. I like that he made those kind of like misogynist, internalized misogynist comments, because that's age appropriate. It's not age appropriate for grown men to talk like that. You needed to learn and do better with your misogyny as a grown man. But I think that's age appropriate for a teenage boy. I think those conversations are really appropriate for a young teenage boy and a young teenage girl to be having about what is my opinion, what do I think about slut shaming and all this kind of stuff. What do I think about, she calls it sexual bullying, which I thought was like, I don't know, maybe just word sexual to me, it's like a little intense, but I guess it is sexual bullying. It's saying like you're performing sexual acts and spreading rumors that you're performing sexual acts, criticizing you if you have performed sexual acts, etc. Anyway, so I love that aspect. I love the aspect, she's not perfect, her parents aren't perfect, her brother is not perfect. I think a decision he makes kind of disappoints me, but also it's his decision to make. But I was still saddened that he chose to make it. And we learn a lot. I learned something, a little bit of something about history from this. And I've learned so much as a Black woman, as a woman of color. I learned so much about her perspective as a Native American woman. I'm not Native American. So I see the Redskins and I'm like, ugh, that's politically incorrect. But when she sees it, that hits her. That's her, I don't want to curse. That's her freaking people. That's her freaking family. Like it's not just politically incorrect. It's hurtful to her. Like, and it's like, I know that objectively. I know that in common sense. But when you read it, it becomes more intimate to you. You like take it, you have more empathy. And that's what people say all the time, like, oh, stories are empathy machines or whatever. You know that old thing that they say. But I'm just like, the book is so good. It's so underhyped. Let's talk about this book cover, though. Let's talk about this book cover. Is it because is it a small publisher or something? I don't like this. I don't like this book cover. I do not think that's a good book cover. She has, her jeans have no detail. She has no fingers. She has no face. And to indicate that she's Native American, they put feathers. I mean, I don't know. And to me, if I was a Native American girl, I wouldn't necessarily see this and be like, oh, a Native American girl, because I don't think it's cultural appropriation. I think every culture has birds. Every culture has birds and feathers. You know, there's so like, to me, I see this and maybe the girl is like a hippie. Maybe there's a little bohemian vibe. I don't know. And I don't know also what the title is supposed to mean. I think it has something to do with her brother played the Tin Man, and there's a reference to he has his own mind, he can make his own decision, and he has his own heart. But I'm like, maybe it should have called My Own Heart. My Own Heart. She's following her own heart. Maybe just Hearts Unbroken. And it also kind of puts an emphasis on the romance more. And I think this, to me, another reason why I liked this is because I was in journalism in high school and I was in theater class and theater club in high school. So this, to me, should have played more on, like, there should have been a stage. Maybe it's like her walking towards the stage. Or, you know what I'm saying? Because she does have to go in the auditorium and interview people. Her walking towards the stage, something. Where you come from, because there's a quote in the book. It's like, there's no place like home. Go back where you came from. Oh, I was screaming. These people are so ignorant. People were telling her family, because they're brown people, you can't immediately say, are they Native American or are they Hispanic, of Hispanic origin? So people were saying to her in the book, or they were writing letters, go back where you came from. And I'm like, she's Native American. I was screaming. I was so mad. I was like, are you serious? Go follow me on Goodreads, because I was writing all caps. People still think like this. This is terrible. I hate it. I hate it. It's so ignorant. It's so ignorant. This is one of my new favorite YAs. I don't know. I'm coming up on 20 minutes. I'm trying to need to like wind down. But I just felt like, I don't know. A part of me is like, maybe if the promotion was better. There I know. And then there's people on Goodreads. Let's discuss people on Goodreads for a second. There were young people on Goodreads, and everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, who were like, that the writing was not good. There's too many characters. A lot of people said there's too many characters. And I'm like, really? Were there too many characters? I think I liked that, because I find YA so dull sometimes. So dull and so cliche. I don't want to watch. I don't want to read a book where it's the same two characters having cute little quirky conversations for 5 chapters. You know, like, it's ridiculous. I hate it. I like that there was a lot going on. I like that she had an ex. I like that she had a new love interest. I like that she was in journalism. Her brother was in drama. They, you know, in theater drama, not drama, a little drama. Um, I like that there was a lot going on because these books can get dull. Like, I feel like the realistic YA fiction can get dull. It can get dull. It really can. And I, and there's like fantasy YA, which can get too cliche as well. I'm not going to get into that. And then, it's et cetera, on and on and on, right? So I felt like it was a good balance between it moved quickly, it handled things with care, and even I don't want to give too much away. Um but I just want to say that like it was really good. I think it was really good, really well written, and I think that this would appeal more to kids who are like if it was like marketed like Glee towards the Glee audience, kids who were in theater club or Glee club, or kids that were in journalism, or kids that like to read and are bookish. And some people said that the teenagers in this were too smart and that they weren't. One person said they were too pithy for teenagers, and I'm like, that's actually not true in my experience. Like, I don't know. I think people don't give people enough credit, like give young kids enough credit, and they kind of write towards the lowest common denominator, and I just don't think that's true. I feel like were I felt like it had a very good youthful voice, even though I think of course you can tell that an adult wrote it. I do think you can tell an adult wrote it. It wasn't written by a teen, but I think that they weren't too pithy. I think that they talked about things that Gen Z, the generation that's teenagers right now, are talking about. Look online. Gen Z is almost more vocal than millennials. So don't is it too pithy? I don't think so. I don't think so. First of all, Gen Z is the people out here canceling everybody and breaking down why you're violating social justice. Uh, like, you know what I mean? So, are they too pithy? Maybe they're too pithy for you. Anyway, for me, a new favorite. I literally gave it 5 stars. My threshold for 5 stars is, did this book in whatever book genre it's supposed to be in, did it execute what it should have done in that genre with the story, with what it was trying to be? Well, I think this did exceedingly well. I thought it was excellent. I give it 5 stars. That's my 5 stars. My favorite YA, I don't know what to title this video. My favorite YA of the year, one of my new favorite YAs of all time. I don't know. I want to compare it to All the Boys and Hate You Give, but the title would be too long. I don't know. Tell me what you think below. Subscribe, follow me on Goodreads, etc. Always, always. My Goodreads is in my bio. I think I keep forgetting to put it in the description box. But anyway,